This from that story we were discussing a little bit earlier with Nick Wright about the Rockets. They were at their best last year when Harden and Paul played together during the playoffs, posting a plus 6.4 net rating compared to a minus 1.5 with only Harden on the floor and a minus 4.6 with only Paul on the floor. In other words, statistically speaking, they're better together than they are divided, right? Isn't that true for all of us? Aren't we all better together than we are divided? Sorry, I'm a little cheesy, but it's actually generally true. The difference is this, that sports is not all about stats. I understand we just had Nick Wright on. He is, in fact, all about stats. That analytics and statistical analysis is an important part of the future, not just in sports, but in business, right? Understanding not just if we're successful, but how and why we are successful, and more of that. Heck, we do it in radio. We do it in television. Right? We check out the demos, what hits, what doesn't, what gets the most clicks. But just because it gets the most clicks doesn't mean it's the core of what we do or who we are or how we want to feel or how we want to broadcast. Apparently, the strife within the Rockets is that Chris Paul's a super strong personality, shocker there, that he wants the ball in his hands, shocker there, that he believes that his knowledge of how to play and how to win is something that James Harden should learn from, and it drives him crazy, the little things that James Harden doesn't do, the fact that he doesn't move without the basketball, the fact that he doesn't play any sort of defense, and he only really plays with the basketball in his hands. Of course, they're better statistically with 2 stars on the floor than they are with 1 star on the floor. What it doesn't take into account is, again, and I pointed this out to Colin, like, I understand that the stats would tell you the Warriors were better without KD as opposed to without Steph. The problem with that is it's actually an indictment of the guy who replaces Steph as opposed to the guy who replaces KD. Do you guys understand? Like, it's not in a vacuum. I think that's actually more of an indictment on Quinn Cook, for example, with the Warriors, as opposed to Andre Iguodala, who would be in the starting lineup when Kevin Durant was out. And if you don't think that Andre Iguodala is a better player than Quinn Cook, I can't really help you. And so some of this is an indictment on the bench and how the Rockets are in fact built to play around James Harden now, as opposed to playing with Chris Paul. I agree with anyone who says Chris Paul's contract is going to be like an Albert Pujols contract at the end of it. The last 2 years are going to be ugly. But he still has a ton of value, and you can't really trade him. So you got to let Chris Paul be Chris Paul. But this is one of those things where we told you for a long time, boy, it feels like a bad fit. I get that they're both great, but can they be great together? People always say, like, you and Colin are great. Why don't you and Colin do a show together? Why? Because Colin's a solo act. He's a solo act. He's good in the football show, but he's best on this show. James Harden's a solo act. And that's why Chris Paul's struggling to play with him. It's really that simple. Really that simple. Hi, I'm Doug Gottlieb from Fox Sports Radio, and you need to subscribe to the Fox Sports Radio YouTube channel where you can hear and see me. Why not? Plus everybody else who's awesome here in Fox Sports Radio.